The world is watching, its gaze fixed on a region teetering on the brink. Every action, every decision resonates far beyond the borders of those directly involved. Gaza and Israel, where a long-simmering conflict has reached a critical point, threatening to engulf the entire region in a devastating conflagration. Decades of tension, mistrust, and failed negotiations have culminated in this moment of profound crisis. The decisions made now in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem will shape the lives of millions and test global alliances, forcing nations to confront difficult choices and reevaluate long-held positions. The stakes are incredibly high, with the potential for far-reaching consequences. Protests erupt worldwide, a chorus of voices demanding justice, peace, and an end to the cycle of violence. Governments issue warnings, urging restraint and calling for a de-escalation of hostilities while struggling to find a path towards a lasting resolution. And humanitarian groups plead for access to civilians caught in the crossfire, desperately trying to provide aid and comfort to those in desperate need. This is more than a regional war. It's a test of international conscience, a moment that will define the global community's commitment to peace, justice, and human dignity. For those living through it, survival is a daily struggle, a constant battle against fear, uncertainty, and the ever-present threat of violence. In Gaza, families shelter from relentless bombing, facing dire shortages of food, water, and medical supplies. In Israel, border communities live under constant rocket threat, their lives disrupted by the jarring sound of sirens and the urgent need to seek shelter. And families of hostages wait in agony, their hearts filled with a mixture of hope and despair as they pray for the safe return of their loved ones. The human cost is staggering, deepening trauma on both sides, leaving scars that may never fully heal. Every action is scrutinized, every word analyzed, dissected, and debated in the global arena. The world is divided, and the pressure on leaders is immense, as they grapple with the complexities of this conflict and the weight of their decisions. Our goal is to understand the pressures on decision-makers and give voice to the suffering on all sides, to shed light on the human dimension of this crisis. The choices ahead could lead to wider war, a descent into further chaos and destruction, a fragile truce, a temporary respite from the violence but not a lasting solution. Or something entirely unexpected, a breakthrough in negotiations or an unforeseen shift in the political landscape. What happens next matters to everyone because the consequences of this conflict will be felt far and wide. This is a story of war and peace, survival and despair, resilience and loss. The future feels just out of reach, shrouded in uncertainty and doubt. The world holds its breath, waiting to see what the next chapter will bring. The crossroads is now. The Israel Defense Forces, for decades considered a formidable and virtually invincible military force in the Middle East, now faces a confluence of challenges, pressures, and constraints unlike anything it has encountered before in its history. The ongoing war in Gaza has devolved into a grinding urban conflict, a stark departure from conventional warfare, characterized by high casualty rates, a significant drain on resources, and a constant test of endurance. The nature of fighting in densely populated urban environments and the labyrinthine tunnel systems beneath them is proving to be exceptionally slow, arduous, and costly, gradually eroding the morale of the troops and impacting their overall readiness for sustained operations. The IDF finds itself stretched thin across multiple fronts, engaged in intense combat operations within Gaza, while simultaneously skirmishing with Hezbollah forces along the northern border with Lebanon, and also contending with persistent unrest and security challenges in the West Bank. Mounting international criticism regarding civilian casualties in the conflict is placing a significant strain on Israel's diplomatic alliances and partnerships. Domestically, the immense pressure to secure the release of hostages held by Hamas and the cumulative toll on reservists who are being called up for extended periods of service weigh heavily on the nation. The IDF is facing unprecedented levels of scrutiny, both internally and from external observers, with its core strengths and overall military strategy being rigorously tested on every conceivable front. This represents a fundamentally new kind of war for Israel, a departure from traditional conflicts, one characterized by asymmetric warfare and urban combat, presenting a complex challenge with no easy or readily available answers. The ultimate outcome of these multifaceted challenges will undoubtedly redefine the balance of power in the region and reshape the geopolitical landscape for years to come. At the very center of Israel's ongoing conflict and its strategic response stands Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, a figure whose political fate is now inextricably linked to the outcome of this war. He is Israel's longest-serving leader, a veteran of countless political battles, now facing perhaps his greatest challenge. His leadership is currently under intense fire, facing scrutiny after significant intelligence failures that preceded the devastating attacks. The shock of the initial attacks has reverberated throughout Israeli society, leading to widespread calls for accountability and a reassessment of security strategies. Netanyahu's fragile coalition government, a delicate balance of diverse political interests, demands decisive and aggressive action in response to the crisis. Simultaneously, the families of hostages held captive are desperately pushing for a deal to secure the release of their loved ones, adding another layer of complexity to the situation. He walks a political tightrope, a precarious position where every step could determine his future. If he appears too soft or compromising, his government could quickly collapse under the weight of internal divisions and public dissatisfaction. Conversely, if he adopts an overly hardline stance, he risks alienating key international allies and facing a significant international backlash. His long-standing legacy as Mr. Security, a reputation built on promises of safeguarding Israel, is now undeniably at stake. Every decision he makes is inevitably shaped by the immediate military strategy, but it is also influenced by the pressing need for his own political survival in a highly charged environment. The perceived need for a swift and decisive victory may well push him toward authorizing riskier military operations, yet a more cautious and measured approach, prioritizing de-escalation and diplomacy, could ultimately prove wiser for Israel's long-term security interests. Therefore, understanding the dual motivations that drive Netanyahu's actions is absolutely key to fully understanding the range of options that are currently being considered and debated behind closed doors. The stakes for him, and, more importantly, for the entire nation of Israel, have simply never been higher in the history of the state. The most aggressive option is a full-scale ground invasion of Rafah, Hamas's last stronghold. Israeli leaders argue it's necessary to destroy Hamas's capabilities and rescue hostages, but Rafah shelters over 1 million displaced Palestinians, making a ground assault a potential humanitarian catastrophe. The risks mass civilian casualties, international condemnation, strained ties with Egypt, and possible loss of hostages. The operation would be brutal urban warfare with high costs for both sides. A decisive military outcome is possible, but at a catastrophic human and diplomatic price. The world is watching, and the consequences would be felt far beyond Gaza. Another option to consider is a strategy of surgical strikes, a more focused approach. This involves targeted raids and precision airstrikes, carefully planned. This is instead of a full-scale invasion. Elite units would then focus on high-value Hamas targets, specifically aiming to degrade their capabilities over time. This approach significantly reduces civilian casualties and lessens diplomatic fallout, preserving key alliances in the region. It's also less risky for Israeli troops and avoids a major crisis with Egypt. But ultimate success depends on perfect intelligence, and mistakes could still unfortunately cause tragedy. Critics argue it won't fully destroy Hamas, only prolong a low-intensity conflict situation. The war therefore could drag on indefinitely, with no clear path to victory. It's a long and arduous game, with uncertain and unpredictable results. The third path is diplomacy, prioritizing a deal to free the hostages. This would require Israel to make major concessions, including releasing Palestinian prisoners and agreeing to a ceasefire. Hostage families are a powerful force, demanding action and capturing the nation's attention. A deal could save lives and bring a pause to the bloodshed, allowing aid into Gaza. But it risks Netanyahu's coalition, as hardliners see it as capitulation. Many Israelis fear released prisoners could return to violence. This option puts the moral imperative to save lives above military goals, but leaves Hamas weakened, not destroyed. The choice is agonizing and deeply divisive. Israel faces 3 perilous choices: invade Rafah, pursue surgical strikes, or strike a diplomatic deal. Each path is a gamble, with consequences that will echo across the Middle East. An invasion could bring military victory but unleash a humanitarian disaster and global backlash. Diplomacy could save hostages and pause the war, but leave Hamas in power and deepen political divides. Surgical strikes may prolong the conflict with no clear end. The coming days will define the future for millions. Netanyahu's decision will shape not just this war, but the region's next chapter. There are no easy answers, only hard choices. Whatever path is chosen, it will mark the beginning of a new, uncertain era. The world waits, hoping for a future beyond war.